After 3 years of trying to conquer the heart of the yen-looking female lead, my mission is complete. Letting me leave, Lu Yan's eyes were red, her small hand stubbornly grabbed the hem of my shirt. The voice trembled with helplessness. I promise to never abandon you. My heart is confused. That night was also the night of New Yan maturity. I immediately comforted her, saying that I had to go prepare gifts for her coming-of-age ceremony. Then, while she wasn't paying attention, I left. Mission accomplished, I'm about to return. Holding the cold grace of the soul system, I gradually escaped from the body. But someone still held his hand tightly. Nu Yan's eyes were red, she stubbornly refused to let go. Do you want to leave me? Her voice trembled, no longer as strong as usual, leaving only confusion that could not be hidden. Looking at Nu Yan like that, my heart couldn't help but ache. Today is obviously your birthday, obviously I promised to give you a surprise. Apparently just 3 minutes ago, Nu Yan was blushing and said to me, no matter what gift you prepare, I like it. Her eyes were filled with sincere and passionate feelings. Overnight I will grow up, and in the future I will return to you to protect you. I closed my eyes, my heart filled with sadness. These things are ultimately impossible. Because from the moment I entered this novel, I was informed that Nu Yan was the female protagonist loved by thousands of people, and I was just a supporting male tool. My mission is to protect Nu Yan as she grows up, and eventually hand her over to the male lead. And now, 3 years have passed, the male lead is about to appear, I am forced to disappear. I took a deep breath, pretended to be calm, and said, let go. Nu Yan stubbornly said, no. I promised I wouldn't leave you. I promised. She repeated the phrase I promised over and over again as if holding on to the last life-saving duong stem, desperate to the extreme. At this time, the system was a bit worried, urging the host, you have to leave quickly. The male lead is about to meet the female lead, you can't be there. I also want to leave, but Nu Yan is the female lead after all. She grabbed me so tightly that I couldn't completely leave this world. The next moment, I pressed my face close to Nu Yan. The distance between the two was so close that they could feel each other's breath, warm and gentle. What are you thinking? I'm not abandoning you, I just want to prepare a surprise for your coming-of-age ceremony. Nu Yan's body suddenly stiffened. What? I gently held her hand, but if you're so anxious, I can show you the gift first. She completely couldn't stand the provocation, her earlobes turned red. His voice also became faltering, what, is that a surprise? I bowed my head and placed a kiss on her hand. The kiss was very light, very short, but Nu Yan felt like she was burned and unconsciously withdrew her hand. She looked at me bewildered, but immediately after that the light that had just flashed in Nu Yan's eyes went out. Because I took advantage of her letting go and completely disappeared, leaving only one last sentence, sorry, I lied to you. I saw Nu Yan's unbelievable expression in my eyes, suddenly filled with pain and madness. She reached out her hand as if she wanted to hold me, but immediately her vision fell into darkness. I knew I had escaped the world of the novel. I sighed, even though it was cruel, but anyway, Nu Yan and I would never see each other again. Then before leaving, just completely cut off her hope, then she will lose her heart to me, and from there have one heart with the male protagonist in the original work. The male lead's name is Tan Wai-dang. Tan, as his name suggests, is a cold, cruel character full of intrigue. The person destined to stay by Nu Yan's side all his life. After completing this mission, I will be given a 5-year leave of absence. Lying on the big soft bed, I closed my eyes. I have to forget this experience, hide those emotions that are beyond limits. That way you can focus wholeheartedly on the next task. But as soon as I closed my eyes, Nu Yan's final expression appeared in my mind, completely different from her usual docile look. Her eyes were filled with despair and madness, terrifying people. That expression reminded me of the first time I met her. At that time, Nu Yan had just been sold by her biological parents. The young girl's whole body was covered in blood, lying in a cage at the auction. A few strands of hair were scattered across his forehead, looking lonely and weak. the attending guests were buzzing about the organization. What was the organizer thinking? Why did he bring a dead child up here? It seems like his parents gambled and ran out of debt, so they sold their own daughter. Oh my God, this child was seriously injured, so pitiful. The poor person must have had something to blame for being sold by her parents. She must have been an illegitimate child who deserved to die. Under sharp eyes, Nguyen is like a defective product, being guessed and evaluated by everyone. But she still didn't show any emotion. He didn't even bother to raise his head, as if he was used to this malice. Time passed, still no one was willing to spend money to buy Nguyen. The auctioneer's face became increasingly unsightly. Do you really not consider it? If no one buys it, we can only destroy this item. Hearing this, an old man came running. Wait, I bought her. This was the first time I realized that I was, of course, a tool. Whether it's establishing characters or assets, they're all miserable. I had to rummage around every corner for nearly 10 minutes, spending most of my savings before reluctantly matching the starting price. After that, in front of everyone, I awkwardly led Nguyen home. Considered saving her life. But the problem comes again, I don't know what to do to reassure her. The little girl was like a wounded wolf cub, alert and cold, standing at the door refusing to enter the house. Even though she didn't seem to react, I could feel her breathing tense and her eyes staring at me. Being looked at by her until my whole body felt unnatural, I could only utter one line, "Hello, my name is Chiem Tan Na." The other party still did not react. I'm a little embarrassed, but it's understandable. Anyway, in principle, Lu Nguyen was tortured by her biological parents for 15 years. It's inevitable that she'll be wary. Thinking of this, I can't help but soften my heart. Even the words carried some sincerity. From now on, I am your family. In front of me, you don't have to be so constrained. Lu Nguyen finally raised her head. Eyes as deep as ink, speaking the first sentence of the night, conditions. What are the conditions? I was immediately stunned. Huh? Lu Nguyen's whole body was on guard. What are the conditions for me to save you? Min is the female lead, just a few words left me speechless. I can't say that I intentionally approached her because I wanted to complete the system's mission. So I gently patted her head, calling my brother. This time, it was Lu Nguyen's turn to be stunned. What are you talking about? I'm younger than you, isn't it common sense for adults to treat children well? What conditions can be asked? The corner of my mouth curled up into an evil smile. If you want me to always be by your side, then call me brother and try it out. After all, I just spent all my savings to let the future big boss turn my hand. It's raining on me. Calling me a few times brother isn't too much, right? Under the night light, the little girl's earlobes turned red. After a long while, she said the words brother as if she was being teased. I laughed happily, but later I really risked my life to protect her because of this call brother. For 3 years from then on, Lu Nguyen stayed by my side. According to the established principle, during these 3 years, Lu Nguyen will experience many dark episodes. She will be honed by life into a cold, heartless, cruel person from an early age. Therefore, I deliberately went against the principles, like knowing the future, leading Lu Nguyen to avoid countless dangers in the future. Protect her very well, even though danger is always lurking, but always narrowly escape death. Willow Nguyen also changed a lot. She no longer closes herself off to the outside world but gradually becomes an excellent, gentle girl who understands life. Every time she looked at me, those beautiful phoenix eyes always contained an undisguised smile. She also used her clear, sweet voice to call me brother, making me so numb that I couldn't stand it. Key wishes to gradually return to the time 3 years later. Lu Nguyen's last look in her eyes was completely different from what I remember. Suddenly, I had a bad feeling. Being betrayed by the person closest to her, what will happen to Lu Nguyen? Is it anger, despair, or resentment towards me? I woke up startled, drenched in cold sweat. But instinctively, I said to the system, how is Lu Nguyen now? Dear system, are you talking about the world's heroine? She seems mentally unstable right now, her emotions are always out of control. My heart was still uneasy, but the system comforted me, but this is a normal thing. The plot of the original story is like that. So the female lead met the male lead, Dang Tan, like a light of salvation in the darkest time. After that, she immediately fell in love with Dang Tan and fell in love. If Yen had been betrayed, she would have extremely lacked the sense of security. She even imprisoned Dang Tan, but in the end, with Dang Tan's company, she was saved. Resolve the problems in your heart. The two of you hold hands for the rest of your life. This story doesn't need a retelling system, I've seen it hundreds of times already. I now breathed a sigh of relief. The outcome has been decided, what else do I have to worry about? But later I realized I made a fatal mistake. If I could have realized early on that the way Lu Nuyen looked at me was infatuation, excitement, even sickness, would I have discovered that she was a crazy person hiding herself? Such a crazy person cannot be lectured by the story, and the so-called ending has long gone off track. What? I almost couldn't believe my ears. Last year, I finished my leave and was about to start a new assignment. Yet the system hesitantly told me that the blackening index of Lu Nuyen had skyrocketed. The male lead couldn't succeed, and the story seriously collapsed. The world is about to be destroyed. The system spoke in a low voice with a lack of confidence. Host, Dr. Dang Tan has failed, you have to replace him with the power of Lu Nuyen. I was speechless. Why are you saying it now? Until I completely betrayed her before coming back here, wouldn't that mean you're looking for your own death? I really didn't dare to imagine that when I betrayed Lu Nuyen, how much blow she had to endure for her blackening index to skyrocket like that. Now I return to her power, I remember the story and my heart feels cold. After 5 years, Lu Nuyen is now 23 years old. According to the progress of the original work, her abilities and tricks have both reached their peak. Cruel, extreme, bigoted. For me to confront her now, it's like a fool going to attack Super MC Levan. Why did I shake my head and refuse? The system cried bitterly again, Host, I beg you. The previous world was our responsibility. If it was destroyed, we would also be erased. Until returning to the previous world, the feeling of paranoia was still there. The system said, Lu Nuyen is currently participating in an auction. So I went directly to the scene. After reluctantly accepting the truth, I looked around and discovered that everyone was wearing specially designed masks. This must be a secret auction of the upper class. Everyone is wearing masks, so how can I recognize Lu Nuyen? While I resented the system in my heart for its lack of professionalism, the red curtain on the stage suddenly slowly opened, revealing a picture. On it was drawn a sleeping girl with half-closed eyes. With a few scribbled strokes, when I saw this scene, my eyes were filled with disbelief. But not because this is some earth-shattering masterpiece, but because this is a painting of Willow Luyen that I painted myself 10 years ago. When Lu Nuyen just moved to my house, every night she had such a headache that she couldn't sleep. Her parents injected her with a large amount of sedatives, and the after-effects have not completely healed. So, I immediately took her to the hospital for intravenous fluids. Every night, I will tell her some innocent stories myself, or hum and lullaby her to sleep. Over time, Lu Nuyen also went from resisting at first to being able to fall asleep. This picture I drew while she was sleeping. When she woke up, I gave it to her. Hopefully she will have beautiful dreams every day from now on. Earlobe. The little girl's lips were a little red. Received his picture, but didn't expect that he would transfer to the wrong rotation. I saw it again at auction 10 years later. The people in the audience looked at each other in confusion, obviously not knowing what this painting was worth. I don't know, because when I came, the author of this painting also didn't know. 10 million. At this moment, a low, easy-to-hear voice rang out. 10 million. On stage, the sound of breathing stopped, everyone's eyes looked in the same direction. I immediately stiffened. Wait, isn't this Lu Nuyen voice? Furthermore, it came from next to me. I stiffened and turned to look, only to see a woman wearing a luxurious leather dress, sitting back in a chair, with a cold, noble aura. The silver mask makes her even more mysterious and unapproachable. My heart beats faster. Lu Nuyen, 3 years, I will absolutely not admit mistakes. That's definitely Lu Nuyen. Turns out I was blaming the wrong system. It's not unprofessional, it's too professional. Yet he directly sent me to my seat. Next to Lu Nuyen, maybe it was because my expression was too scared. The woman next to her tilted her head slightly. His eyes touched me. In the moment the 4 eyes looked at each other, their dark eyes tried to hold me as if they wanted to burn me into ashes. Her familiar voice rang in my ears, still gentle and nurturing as before. Older brother. It was obviously a very gentle statement, but it made me break out in a cold sweat. Did Lu Nuyen recognize me? So should I nod? What should I say? I still have to explain how I left before. Extremely stressed, my throat was so dry that I couldn't speak. Yen Yen. A gentle voice suddenly rang out, interrupting my thoughts. At this point, I noticed the guy sitting on the left. He was wearing a black suit. The front mask on his face is also uniquely designed, making him look even more mysterious and profound. Yen Yen, the auctioneer is inviting you, why are you still so dumbfounded? This disdainful tone was like a bucket of cold water, instantly waking me up. This is why Dang Tan, in the original work, only why Dang Tan dared to call Yen Yen to Lu Nuyen, the person everyone had to respect. If so, then Lu Nuyen last sentence brother most likely was not addressed to me. Anyway, I was wearing a mask, she probably didn't recognize me. Then it can only be calling Wai Dang Tan next to me. Of course, after listening to Wai Dang Tan's words, Lu Nuyen just said indifferently, then withdrew her eyes. She stood up and walked onto the stage. At this point I breathed a sigh of relief, but in that relief was mixed a trace of disappointment for unknown reasons. It's not okay. Not to mention Lu Nuyen's current strength, even a glance from her made me tremble to the point of being unbearable. I secretly patted the system and said in a low voice, this mission must have been done by me. I see that Wai Dang Tan's strategy was very successful and Lu Nuyen doesn't seem to be turning black. Before I finished speaking, the system quickly interrupted me. Host, stop talking, go do the mission. The female lead's blacking index is still increasing. The voice had rarely been so tense. The female lead has already set up a time bomb at the auction. Until then, she will hold this painting and be buried in flames with everyone. I suddenly raised my head. Lu Nuyen on stage is still dignified, gentle like water, but her hand is twirling a fountain pen. In that moment, I held my breath. The system said, this pen is the TC that activated the bomb. You absolutely cannot let Lu Nuyen press it. Yet Lu Nuyen dared, in front of everyone, to blatantly show her murder weapon like that. Truly a crazy person. I worriedly thought about how to get that pen. But Lu Nuyen on stage smiled faintly and leisurely took off her mask. Suddenly, screams rang out below. Isn't this Lu Tong? Lu Nuyen personally came to participate in the auction. I remember she was very busy this morning. Oh my God, the real person is even more beautiful than the photo. Amidst words of amazement and admiration, the auctioneer cautiously approached the interviewer. Miss Lu, may I ask why you were willing to spend 10 million to buy this painting? Under everyone's curious eyes, Lu Nuyen calmly said, this is a picture my husband drew for me. I looked at the stage with an incredulous expression, but Lu Nuyen still didn't change her expression, as if she was sincerely expressing her love for her husband. The stage immediately rang out with shouts and chatter. Is Lu Nuyen married? Why did I hear that she didn't get married for the sake of the bright moonlight in her heart? Why did she change her mind? Read too many novels. What successful woman would miss out on important matters because of love? That's right, I heard that she and that guy are very close, it's very possible that they're cheating on each other. Having finished speaking, someone secretly looked at Wai Dang Tan with envious eyes, but Wai Dang Tan only smiled wryly and did not answer. As for me, as if struck by lightning, I was stunned for a long time before I regained my composure. Since when did I become Lu Nuyen husband? The auctioneer clearly did not expect Lu Nuyen to actually answer this question, and was so excited that his face turned red. Anyway, Lu Nuyen is always cold and careful, and has never accepted any interviews. So, he quickly took advantage of the situation and asked, "But I heard that Miss Lu has always been single." Lu Nuyen said, "I'm not single, and my relationship with my husband is very good. From the moment we first met at the auction, I fell in love with him at first sight." I remembered Lu Nuyen's eyes when I saved her at the auction before. So sad that you can't see the bottom. Is this also called love at first sight? The auctioneer continued to ask, "So is your husband by your side now?" Lu Nuyen's cold eyes were directed downwards, obviously quite a distance away, but I felt she was looking at me. Wanting to run away under the auctioneer's surprised eyes, Lu Nuyen smiled, "But it's okay, I've found him." Having finished speaking, her long slender hand picked up the fountain pen and rotated it nonchalantly. The system immediately emits a shrill warning sound. The female lead's darkening index has reached the maximum level. Found that the female lead is preparing to detonate the scene. Please, host, quickly stop it. In that moment, I no longer had the mind to care about other things and stood up directly. Wake up and shout loudly, "Stop." As I wished, Lu Nuyen's hand finally stopped, but her eyes locked on me. The eyes were gloomy and dark, as if holding back intense and sick emotions. She moved her lips slightly, "Caught you." After the party ended, I changed into the simplest outfit and hid in a hidden corner where no one would notice. My mind is still a mess. Just now, after discovering me, Lu Nuyen did not do anything too aggressive. She just calmly walked off the stage and returned to her original position, which was also next to me. Neither of us spoke up. I felt like I was sitting on a fire, so nervous that I could barely watch anything during the party with my sweaty palms. My mind was filled with questions about what I would say to Lu Nuyen after the party ended. "Long time no see. Have you had a good life these past few years?" But she's not living well, entirely because of me. My mind was confused, I couldn't think of some greeting plans, but as soon as the party ended, Lu Nuyen was surrounded by a group of prestigious ladies and left. I stared at her back, her dignified, alert figure. Only then did I react in time. Lu Nuyen is no longer the girl I knew 5 years ago. Currently, she is a bright star in the business world. "How can you let me do whatever you want, come when you want to go?" Standing in the middle of the party, the system's urging voice rang out, "Host, your mission is to assassinate the female lead, not to assassinate the female lead. If you hide in the corner like that, how can you contact her?" I have a headache, so I cut him off so I can calm down. Now, as soon as I see Lu Nuyen, I get nervous and completely unable to function. Moreover, I raised my head and looked up. Lu Nuyen was standing in the middle of the hall, also separated from the prestigious nobles, leisurely and at ease but distant, unreachable. She and I are clearly no longer from the same world. Can you really still have the power? "Mr. Qian Xin, hello." A clear voice suddenly rang in my ear, only then did I regain my composure. Wei Dang Tan was wearing a luxurious suit, standing in front of me, smiling at me. He got straight to the point. "You, like me, are also a law enforcement officer, right?" I was startled. In principle, I'm just a supporting male tool, with almost no acting space, so why would the male lead recognize me? Seeming to see my caution, Wei Dang Tan explained, "You and I are both civil servants. When we enter this world, there will be an announcement. Furthermore, Lu Nuyen." He said half of it and then suddenly fell silent. He changed the subject. "You must have heard, right?" I tried my best but couldn't succeed. "This world is about to collapse, so the system urgently sent you here." I nodded hesitantly. Even though it wasn't successful, I've been here for 5 years. As for Lu Nuyen, there is more or less some understanding. Wei Dang Tan raised his glass of wine towards me, smiling sincerely. "I will help you complete your next public mission." This was a big surprise. After all, having many friends makes it easier to do business, so I politely thanked him, accepted the glass of wine, and took one sip as my agreement to cooperate. Wai Dang Tan took my arm. Let's go. I'll take you to meet some big sisters. Before the words were finished, the surroundings suddenly fell silent, the crowd dispersed to both sides, making way for a path. Lu Nuyen slowly walked towards me. Honey, let's go home. I was stunned. What does this mean? Wai Dang Tan's face stiffened. Yen, but Mr. Qian Xin just agreed to go with me. Lu Nuyen coldly glanced at him. My husband and I have been separated for 5 years. Now I just want to be a little intimate. Do I still need the consent of an outsider? Hearing that, Wai Dang Tan's face turned pale, sweat poured out on his forehead. No need. Seeing that, I felt even more guilty. What has Lu Nuyen done in these 5 years that could scare Wai Dang Tan to this extent? If even the male lead treats me like that, doesn't it mean he wants to destroy me? Seeing that I didn't move, Lu Nuyen walked directly over, held my hand and left. I didn't dare to resist, I could only stiffly follow her. Everyone's eyes were staring at me. Lu Nuyen and Wai Dang Tan are experts. Looking at his face, he caught the image. After being stunned for a moment, he immediately flattered, "Is this the husband that Mr. Lu just mentioned?" "Why, of course it's you." Tuan Phi Pham, Mr. Qian Xin's VC is really simple and elegant. Knows people, knows how to take care of the family. After 5 years of long-distance relationship, the relationship between the two of them is still so good, it's admirable. I secretly smiled bitterly. Thank you, if you can't praise then don't praise. Also, Lu Nuyen's face is very ugly right now, as if she has some kind of grudge against me. So how can we see good feelings? While I was still stunned, my head suddenly became dizzy, my legs went weak, and I fell straight to the ground. Mom. Lu Nuyen reacted quickly, caught me, and hugged me in her arms. Before I lost consciousness, I saw Lu Nuyen's extremely ugly face, her eyes filled with murderous intent. What happened in the end? When I woke up, I felt dizzy. A voice slowly said, "Are you awake?" Only then did I notice Lu Nuyen sitting next to the bed, tilting her head and looking at me. Her collar is a bit wide, revealing her delicate collarbones and seductive body curves. I just took a glance and immediately felt my brain getting hotter, so I quickly looked away. Where is this? Lu Nuyen. Responding to his house, I was stunned. Repeat, why are you taking me home? Lu Nuyen was still breathing as she fiddled with her tie. Hearing that, her movement stopped. She bent down, using her tie to hit my hand with a gentle force that did not allow resistance. I was surprised. Lu Nuyen, what are you doing? Instinctively, I wanted to struggle, but because of that strange heat, my whole body was limp, almost unable to move. Under the dim light, Lu Nuyen looked at the button inside and in my hand, like she was looking at an unopened gift. Her voice was hoarse. It's been 8 years, the adulthood gift you promised me, when will you give it? My body immediately stiffened. Isn't this an excuse I made up when I left last year? Unexpectedly, Lu Nuyen not only believed it was true but also remembered it until now. I felt a little guilty and said in a low voice, "This." The corner of Lu Nuyen's lips curled up in a smile. "I know you treat me so well, you must have hidden a gift on your body, right?" Having finished speaking, her long hands groped down my collar. "Let me guess, here or here?" I already felt inexplicably angry, being teased by her like that. It was like adding fuel to the fire. Anger flared up in my heart. I directly grabbed Liu's collar Luyen, then aggressively kissed her on the lips. All the resentment and anger that has been pent up for so long seems to have found a place in anger. The chaotic kiss ended. I smiled evilly like 5 years ago. Lu Nuyen, are you satisfied with this gift of maturity? At first, she just wanted to annoy Lu Nuyen a little, but unexpectedly her eyes became even deeper. Lu Nuyen panted, once again close to me and whispered, "Do you want more satisfaction?" Knock knock. At this moment, suddenly there was an urgent knocking sound outside the door. "General Lu, are you there? Mr. Wai Dang Tan is here to see you." Lu Nuyen was interrupted, her face was very ugly. But after hearing the 3 words "Why Dang Tan," she still stopped moving, the corner of her lips curled up in a cold smile. I just happened to have something to look for him. This tone cannot help but make people afraid. Seeing Lu Nuyen get out of bed and intend to leave, I quickly raised the tie in my hand. Wait, I forgot. Oh, you have to write this out for me, right? Lu Yen's earlobes were still red. She looked at me with an innocent smile. No, it's too dangerous outside. Last night at the party, Wai Dang Tan only left my sight for 2 minutes and he was drugged. So please stay in your room. Am I being imprisoned by Lu Nuyen? My hands were blinded and the door was locked. I sat down on the bed angrily. System, do you have any way to get me out? Unexpectedly, the system's response was cheerful. Why are you going out, host? Do you know that Lu Yen Blackization Index has decreased by 40 points? According to my research, every time you are a little closer to her, her Blackization Index will decrease a little. Now the world is no longer in danger of collapsing. What the hell? So if I leave Lu Nuyen, she will turn black and crazy again? Looks like I can't leave for now. My body was still burning hot, I was dizzy and threw myself onto the bed. Before going out, Lu Nuyen said I was strangely drugged. What kind of medicine is it anyway? Just now, when I kissed Lu Nuyen, my fever immediately subsided. But after she left, the dizziness set in again. So uncomfortable, I turned around and accidentally touched a painting on the wall. Simple black and white lines sketched the image of a girl. I was immediately attracted. This is the painting that Lu Nuyen spent 10 million to buy, and is also the gift that I freely gave to Lu Nuyen 8 years ago. The painting is very well preserved and carefully framed. After many years have passed, it's still as good as new. It can be seen that its owner appreciates it very much. While I was fascinated watching, Lu Nuyen suddenly walked in through the door. Her face was even more unsightly than when she went out, her whole body radiated murderous aura. I was stunned. What happened? Lu Nuyen came down next to me and directly put her arms around my waist. What are you doing? Before he finished speaking, a pill was stuffed into his mouth. Don't be messy. This is long medicine. At this point, I half-heartedly swallowed it down. The bitter taste rolled off my tongue. I frowned in discomfort. Lu Nuyen saw that, when I was unguarded, she bowed her head and kissed me on the lips. Boy, let me help you neutralize a bit. I was stunned, until I smelled the faint smell of alcohol that I woke up. Have you been drinking? She didn't say anything, but her eyes were covered with a layer of fog, just staring at me without blinking, like a deep abyss seducing people. Qiantan Nan, why did you treat me so well before? This question was so sudden that I was stunned on the spot, but Lu Nuyen continued to speak on her own. I've been thinking about it for 8 years and still don't understand. When I was most miserable, only you chose to stay by my side and protect me. But when I grew up and was able to protect you, you lied to me and abandoned me. Her voice became more and more trembling. Do you just like seeing my pitiful appearance? Lu Nuyen once again showed a pitiful expression, just like when she saw me leave. My heart couldn't help but ache. Probably due to side effects of the antidote. My heart is soft. I knew Lu Nuyen liked me 8 years ago, but I didn't expect her feelings to be so deep. After experiencing my betrayal, spending 5 years alone and still being able to love me like before, bitter emotions filled my heart. If only I wasn't a law enforcement officer, it would be fine. If only I could be by her side for the past 5 years, would she have become so stubborn, extreme, or worried about gaining or losing? That night I didn't sleep well. Maybe it's from crying, maybe it's from memories, making my eyes wet. In my dream, I felt like Lu Nuyen were hugging me. The warmth from her body passed to me. I could feel her patting my head, coaxing something in a low voice, just like what I had done to her. I heard her say, "Brother, I hope you have good dreams in the future. Believe, believe, believe." The phone rang in the middle of a quiet night. I frowned in discomfort, waking up from the dream. Lu Nuyen is still sleeping. Hang me, she closed tightly. Under the moonlight, the facial features became vague, sometimes resembling the little girl 8 years ago. I gently turned off the phone, afraid of waking her up. But after waiting for a while, I couldn't find the phone. Only then did I react in time. This sound is transmitted from the system in the brain. The system detected a request from Medical Officer Y Dang Tan to chat. Accept it or not? I was silent. Although earlier, Y Dang Tan held my hand and said he wanted to help me, but as soon as I turned my back, I was drugged. If it wasn't Lu Nuyen who took me home, I would have passed out in some corner right now, and on the way, I only drank the wine that Y Dang Tan gave me. Be careful, agree to the request no matter what he wants to do. When soldiers come, generals block them, when water comes, cover the ground. Chien Tan Nan, I have found a way to leave here. Y Dang Tan's cheerful voice was full of joy. It's even a little jarring. I was stunned. Leave where? Of course, Y Dang Tan chuckled. Leaving this world requires this force, why do you say? If this world collapses, we will be wiped out, right? So I found a way to get out of here. It is completely possible to be free from attachment to this world. I'm waiting. He lives at 36. No Dong Street. Before I could answer, Y Dang Tan's voice died out. After finishing the conversation, I was stunned for a long time, still unable to recover. Number 36 No Dong Street, isn't that the house where Lu Nuyen and I used to live together? Y Dang Tan arranged to meet me there. Ultimately, what do you want to do? The feeling of insecurity made my heart beat erratically. I decided I should still go to No Dong Street to see what happened, then told Y Dang Tan that I wouldn't go. I don't want to throw Lu Nuyen away again. Glancing at the girl sleeping next to me, her movements were gentle and careful, and she tiptoed down the stairs. The night covered the villa, so quiet that you could hear a pin dropping to the ground. Walking all the way to the main door, I put my hand on the doorknob. A familiar voice suddenly rang out from behind. I turned my head in surprise. Lu Nuyen, who was still lying in bed, woke up at some unknown moment, leaning against the stair railing and staring at me. Her eyes were gloomy, inside the storm was about to explode. Do you want to leave me again? My heart beats faster. Obviously this time I didn't want to leave, but facing Lu Nuyen's face, I still felt uneasy for no apparent reason. No, I just want to go out for a walk, Lu Nuyen walked towards me step by step. So why do you have to sneak downstairs with me? Yet she knew all this. In other words, when I just went downstairs, Lu Nuyen didn't sleep at all, just coldly watching me leave the room, go down the stairs, and walk towards the main door. I don't dare to imagine what Lu Nuyen's mood would be like at that time. Facing Lu Nuyen's red eyes, I suddenly became frantic. Trust me, this time is not like last time, I will come back. Lu Nuyen took a deep breath. I saw her hands clenched, seemingly trying to suppress something. Just when I thought she was about to explode, she suddenly trembled, her voice saying, "Okay." I raised my head, with an expression of disbelief, seeing Lu Nuyen staring at me. So before you go, can I kiss you goodbye? Although this request was sudden, it was impossible to refuse. While I lowered my head to kiss Lu Nuyen, she suddenly covered my mouth with her hand. Wait. Her voice trembled. Promise me first, I will definitely come back this time. I'm a little confused. But when I faced those eyes filled with pain, my heart suddenly tightened. This look was exactly the same as 5 years ago, when I was forced to leave. That day, I tricked Lu Nuyen into kissing her, then turned around and left. Lu Nuyen must have remembered what happened that day, right? She was definitely also afraid that I would be like last time, after kissing goodbye and leaving without an appointment to return. So I comforted her and patted her head. I promise you, I will definitely come back this time. Taking a deep breath, I added another sentence, be obediently wait at home for me. I have something to tell you later. Last year's confession, because of my mission, I still kept it hidden in my heart. Next year, if Lu Nuyen still likes me, I don't want to miss her again. Having finished speaking, I kissed Lu Nuyen on the lips. Lu Nuyen reached out and hugged me tightly, warmly responding to this kiss. I'm here. Wai Dang Tan wore a black suit, smiled and walked towards me. I knew right away that you would come. How could any professional person be able to endure someone like Lu Nuyen? Mentally unstable, even extreme. Not me, I casually interrupted him. I came here to tell you, I won't go. The smile on Wai Dang Tan's lips stiffened. After a long while, he slowly spoke, Qian Tan Nan, the day you arrived, Lu Nuyen blackening index had reached its peak. If you want to burn down the entire auction, don't you forget? I nodded. And yet you still want to be with her? She's clearly a crazy person. Hearing this, I raised my head firmly. She wouldn't do that. Returning to that day, I silently took the pen that Lu Nuyen intended to use to activate the bomb. As a result, after checking, the system said that this pen was basically not a bomb detonator but a suicide device. Furthermore, the power is only enough to kill one person. Although I don't know why Lu Nuyen did that, the facts prove that from beginning to end, even on the day her blackening index reached its peak, the most extreme thing she ever thought of was suicide. Never harmed innocent people. It was also at that moment that I discovered that I had been blinded by the so-called plot, my subjective perception, making me instinctively think that Lu Nuyen had become a stubborn, crazy, cruel, and scary person. But from the moment the system told me that the pen was a suicide device, I suddenly realized that perhaps Lu Nuyen had always remained unchanged. Perhaps she is still the innocent, pure little girl of yesteryear. It's just that in the 5 years I left, she held a broken heart in her heart and walked alone in loneliness. Wai Dang Tan was silent. If you don't want to leave, I won't force you. But he raised his head to look at me. This is the last chance to leave here. Previously, Lu Nuyen blackening index skyrocketed, almost causing the whole world to collapse. But now, the world has gradually stabilized. Only here is the strongest energy fluctuation, the only way out. Think carefully. Tonight, the world will be completely repaired. If you don't go, you will forever stay by Lu Nuyen's side. Having finished speaking, Wai Dang Tan stared at me, seemingly confirming that I would go with him. But I only paid attention to one sentence of his. Why is this place the place with the strongest energy fluctuations? This place, number 36, No Dong Street, is clearly the house where Lu Nuyen and I used to live together. Wai Dang Tan did not answer me. Under the moonlight, I saw his eye sockets were a little red. He suddenly said something incomprehensible. You came to Tan Nan, sometimes I really envy you. I was stunned. Clearly I was the destined male lead, clearly I was the one who should heal Lu Nuyen. But she always only remembers him. I tried many ways, wanting to be like in the original, healing her, wanting her to open up to me, but I couldn't do it. His voice choked. Lu Nuyen has had mental breakdowns many times, but has never once come to find me. On the contrary, she often hugs your painting, hides in this house, quietly crying. At that time, I was crazy enough to steal his painting and bring it to the auction. Unexpectedly, Lu Nuyen was willing to spend 10 million to buy it. At that time, I realized that perhaps from the beginning, I had no chance of success. Every sentence he said was like hammer blows hitting my heart, making my heart numb. I didn't know what to say for a moment. At that time, my mind was hot and I quit smoking him. Thinking back now, I still feel guilty. Wai Dang Tan wiped the corner of his eyes and bowed his head. I'm sorry. So this time I took you away to atone for my sins. After hearing these words, I remained silent. For a while, there's no need. I understand the feeling of being forced by the system to attack someone you don't like. Wai Dang Tan was forced to attack someone he didn't like, and I was forced to break up with someone I loved. We are both people who have been oppressed by duty. Furthermore, Wai Dang Tan did not cause me any undue harm. I also don't want to compare with him anymore. Hopefully in the new world, he can live true to himself. Seeing that I did not prosecute, Wai Dang Tan seemed speechless. After softly saying thank you, a faint light flashed. Wai Dang Tan's figure gradually faded. At the last moment, he suddenly turned around and said, there's something I didn't say just now. The reason this place became the place with the strongest energy fluctuations is because Lu Nuyen emotions fluctuated most intensely here. Wai Dang Tan remembered the scene he saw one day. Lu Nuyen, who was always cold and aloof towards outsiders, stayed in this old house, staring at a painting for a long time, like a statue. Just when he felt bored. About to leave, I accidentally glanced at a tear. Lu Nuyen is crying. She cried soundlessly, but her eye sockets were red, as if she was trying to suppress her suffering. Brother, perhaps from that moment, Wai Dang Tan knew he could no longer succeed with his efforts. After Wai Dang Tan left, I was still stunned. Why is Lu Nuyen crying? From the first time we met until we met again for a full 10 years, I never saw her shed a single tear. Whether she was sold by her parents or betrayed by me, at most her eyes were red. Maybe that's why I always think she is very strong, nothing can defeat her. Unexpectedly, the dark female protagonist who discussed the story would sometimes hide alone and cry quietly. Cry? While I was still in a daze, I was suddenly startled to realize that it had already dawned, and I had already arrived at the door of a villa. Even though I was quite a distance away, I could still see Lu Nuyen standing at the door. Obviously she has a tall figure, but she keeps her head down, looking extremely lonely and weak. Lu Nuyen actually waited here all night because of a promise from me. I couldn't help myself and ran towards her. Lu Nuyen suddenly raised her head, her eyes filled with surprise for the first time, without concealment, and immense joy at finding something lost. I hugged her, my voice choked up, Lu Nuyen, I'm home. Lu Nuyen trembled, hugged me tightly, the force gradually became stronger, as if wanting to melt me into her bones. Luckily this time is not like 5 years ago. She was finally waiting for her lover to return. Arriving at home, I watched Lu Nuyen climb into bed without permission. I have a bit of a headache. I can't sleep. I run to bed in the middle of the night. What are you doing? It's been almost a week since the day I confirmed my feelings for Lu Nuyen. I really don't understand her anymore. Before the two of them were together, Lu Nuyen always looked Lu Yen, sometimes imprisoning me, sometimes going crazy, but after being together, she became innocent and pure. For several days in a row, he blushed and slept alone with me. Just when I thought Lu Nuyen didn't like being intimate with others, she suddenly appeared next to me in the middle of the night, startling me. Lu Nuyen lowered her eyes, her expression a bit resentful. I remember when I was little, you were willing to hug me to sleep. Why can't you do that anymore when you grow up? How can they be the same? I looked at Lu Nuyen's slim, attractive figure and said nothing. I understand, Lu Nuyen nodded, it seems like you only liked me when I was younger. If I could become a little younger, you would be willing to sleep with me, right? Stop saying, it's like I have a strange hobby. Furthermore, I don't know if it was an illusion or not, but why did I feel that Lu Nuyen's speaking tone was a bit flirtatious? I tried to keep a calm face and pretended to calmly say, nonsense, say it. Looking for me in the middle of the night, what's going on? It seemed that Lu Nuyen was still sad, automatically ignoring my question, her voice pitiful and innocent. Even though I can't become any smaller now, I can give birth to a baby for you. I'm speechless. Why has the topic gone this way? Seeing my blushing face, Lu Nuyen couldn't help but laugh. Only then did she seriously say, brother, don't you remember what day today is? I shook my head bewilderedly. Lu Nuyen's eyes darkened. You always don't care about me. Seeing her like that, I couldn't help but quickly said, actually, I remember, don't be angry. Lu Nuyen's eyes flashed with joy, but her face remained serious. If you don't argue, how can you be angry with me? I smiled and said, if you say so. Have you never been angry with me? Do not have. The voice grew quieter. The last time you left, what was your mood like? Obviously, we didn't say exactly when, but we both understood. Lu Nuyen raised her head to look at me, her eyes filled with sincerity. Of course I'm worried about you. She continued, that day, you suddenly disappeared in front of me. Besides being crazy worried, what other mood could I be in? Suddenly I felt a stinging sensation on the bridge of my nose, but when I left I lied to you, aren't you angry? Actually, this question has been suppressed in my heart for a long time, like a thorn piercing deep into my heart, making me feel guilty every time I see Lu Nuyen. That's why I took this opportunity to pretend to calmly ask. Just as I was anxiously waiting for an answer, I suddenly felt a warm feeling on my eyelids. Lu Nuyen didn't know when her eyes turned red. Her voice was gentle, not angry. Regardless of whether you lied to me or not, the person who pulled me out of the muddy puddle was really you. In fact, if you were willing to come to this world to save my life, I would be very happy. She held my hand tightly, fingers intertwined. It's just that I'm too greedy and want you to be by my side for the rest of my life. Finally, my tears fell, only this time my heart was no longer painful but filled with unprecedented bitterness and sweetness. I wiped my tears, then finished speaking. I leaned to the side, revealing the delicate cake hidden behind. Lu Nuyen was stunned. I raised my hand to caress the candle on the cake and said seriously, Lu Nuyen, happy birthday. I'll never forget that today is your birthday. Looking at Lu Nuyen's bewildered appearance, I couldn't help but tease, what's wrong? Don't like this gift? Lu Nuyen finally raised her head. Under the warm light, the beautiful face of the girl in front of her became blurred. For a moment, it was like returning to a few years ago. The regret that had not yet been completed during that year's coming-of-age ceremony was finally made up for at this moment. The 18-year-old girl's eyes were full of love, her intention transcended time and space, and she said one sentence, no, I like it very much. Then she said in a low voice, I like you too. I will be very prepared for you. Lu Nuyen rubbed herself against my chest, then raised her head, her eyes sparkling. Really? I will always be by your side. Looking at her eyes, my heart was filled with warmth. I raised my hand to caress her face. Of course, I will always be by your side. At that moment, I clearly felt the distance between me and Lu as if Yen was silently being pulled closer. I thought that in the future we would be like other normal couples, embracing each other every day, enjoying the sweet nectar of love. But reality is much more complicated than I thought. The system still did not give up trying to convince me to leave. It constantly reminded, you can't stay here, you still have a mission, you still have your world. But I still stubbornly chose to stay. Because I discovered I couldn't leave Lu Nuyen. Her attention and love for me made it impossible for me to let her go. Like a little injured kitten, needing my protection and companionship. But I overlooked one problem. Liu's love Lu Yen's is different from normal love. She doesn't love me, it's as simple as that. She loves madly, carrying stubbornness and possessiveness. She couldn't accept anyone entering her world, and couldn't accept me leaving. Our lives gradually became unusual. She would sneak into my room in the middle of the night like a ghost, silently looking at me with intense possessive desire in her eyes. She would take advantage of the time I wasn't paying attention, secretly look at my phone, check the call log, afraid that I would contact someone else. She would ask me to stay by her side every 24 hours, not allowing me to leave her sight. I tried communicating with her, telling her that such actions made me very uncomfortable, but she always stubbornly objected. Brother, why don't you spend more time with me? What are you thinking? Do you like someone else? Her tone became increasingly harsh, her eyes increasingly cold. I knew I had to change the status quo. I started trying to find a way to escape Liu's control Lu Yen. I tried asking for help from the system, but the system was also helpless. Because Lu Nuyen has become a part of this world, if you want to change her, you must change this world from the roots. I tried to seek help from the outside world, but discovered that everyone was as afraid of Lu Nuyen. No one dared to come near her. I tried to confide in Lu Nuyen, wanting her to understand that I would not leave her, but in her heart there was only fear, only insecurity. I slowly started to lose my way. I found myself falling into a dilemma. I love Lu Nuyen, but I cannot accept this sick love of hers. I want to leave, but but I'm worried she won't be able to bear me leaving. I want to change her, but there is no way to change her nature. Until one day, Lu Nuyen suddenly told me she had found a way to help me return to my world. She led me to a mystical place, an underground cellar filled with a strange breath. She pointed to the giant crystal ball door in the middle of the basement, her eyes filled with passion. "Boy, this is a gift I specially prepared for you. It can bring you back to your world." I looked at the crystal ball door in surprise, not knowing what to say. Lu Nuyen continued to say, "I spent a lot of time finding this crystal ball door. It can open the door to space, bringing you back to your world, but it also requires a certain amount of energy." She stopped for a moment and looked at me, her eyes gradually becoming gloomy. "Only your soul can provide." I finally understood what Lu Nuyen wanted to do. She wanted to use her soul in exchange for my freedom. She wanted to complete me, even if it would cost her everything. My heart was filled with conflict and tension. On the one hand, I want to return to my world, return to my life. On the other hand, I don't want Lu to be Lu Yen. I can't bear what she did for me. I was silent for a long time, and finally I decided to refuse. "Lu Nuyen, sorry, I cannot accept your proposal." I looked at her, speaking firmly. Lu Nuyen seemed to have already figured it out. She just nodded slightly, then calmly said, "I understand." She turned around to leave, but suddenly stopped. She turned her head, her eyes filled with sadness. "Brother, do you really want to leave me?" Looking at her eyes, my heart ached. I really wanted to be by her side forever, but I knew I had to leave. Otherwise, I will destroy her and also destroy myself. "I'm sorry, Lu Nuyen," I could only utter these 4 words. Lu Nuyen said nothing, just looked at me quietly, her eyes filled with sadness and despair. I left the cellar, left that crystal ball door, left Lu Nuyen. I returned to my world, but I had no way to return to the past anymore. I can never forget Liu's eyes, Lu Yen. Those eyes hurt me and made me feel guilty. I can never forget Liu's love, Lu Yen. That love is so deep, so stubborn, that people cannot forget it. Lu Nuyen, my beloved girl, the person I love, is also my regret. I can never forget you, and I can never forgive myself. I left Lu Nuyen, returned to my world, and discovered that this world had become strange to me. My mission continues. I still travel through worlds, one goal at a time, but my heart can no longer calm down. I always remember Lu Nuyen, remember her smile, remember her tears, remember her gentle but tragic words. "Brother, do you really want to leave me? I have a new target." But every time I see the smiles of those girls, Liu's face, Lu Yen's, appears in my mind, making it impossible for me to concentrate. I tried to forget Lu Nuyen, but every time the night was quiet, her image appeared in my mind, making me unable to sleep. I started to become quiet, depressed, and no longer as full of life as before. The system also noticed my change. It constantly comforted me and encouraged me, but I couldn't escape the gloom in my heart. I know clearly that I cannot forget Lu Nuyen, nor can I escape my responsibility towards her. I must return to her side. I have to make up for the mistake I made. I went to the system, made a request. "I want to return to Liu's world, Lu Yen." The system hesitated a bit, then finally agreed to my request. It told me that because of my actions, that world was about to collapse. Lu Nuyen's blackening index has reached its peak. If I don't return, that world will be destroyed. And I will never be able to return to my world again. Without hesitation, I agreed. I definitely have to return. Even if that world is destroyed, I still want to destroy it with Lu Nuyen. I returned to Liu's world, Lu Yen, only to find that everything had changed. This world is filled with chaos and violence. There was smoke, fire, and blood everywhere, and Lu Nuyen became the ruler of this chaotic world. She is no longer the gentle, honest girl she once was, but has turned into a cold, heartless king. She grew her company into a huge commercial empire. She uses the power in her hands to manipulate the whole world. She becomes stronger, colder, and more dangerous. When I found Lu Nuyen, she was sitting on top of a high-rise building, looking down at the bustling city below her feet. Next to her are many subordinates. They were all filled with awe and, despite worshipping her, Lu Nuyen seems lonely and lost. She saw me, a flash of surprise flashed through her eyes, then regained her composure, just coldly asked, "What are you doing here?" I took a deep breath, looked straight into her eyes, and said, "I came to correct my mistakes. I came to be by your side." Lu Nuyen laughed coldly. "Do you think you can still return to my side? Do you think you can change anything?" I shook my head and said, "I will try. I will never leave you again." Lu Nuyen didn't say anything, just looked at me quietly. I could see that her heart was full of contradictions and struggles. She both wanted my company and was afraid of my betrayal. I walked to her side and gently held her hand. "Lu Nuyen, are you willing to give me another chance?" Lu Nuyen was silent for a long time, then finally she nodded. I was finally back by her side, but I knew I faced a bigger challenge. I want to change her. I want to heal her. I want her to escape the ghosts of her past. I have to make her trust that I will always be by her side, no matter what happens. My story has just begun. My journey with Lu Nuyen has just begun. I will use my sincere heart to love her, protect her, and keep her company. I will use my actions to change her, heal her, so that she can be revived. I believe we will definitely walk hand in hand to a brighter future. Returning to Lu Nuyen, I discovered that she was much more difficult to approach than I imagined. She is no longer the naive, weak girl she once was, but has become a cold, cruel king, standing at the pinnacle of power, holding everything in her hands. Her eyes were always full of caution and vigilance, and her tone was as cold as a block of ice, unable to melt, making others not dare to come close. I tried to use gentleness and kindness to approach her like before, but her reaction left me disappointed. "Don't look at me with those eyes. I don't need your pity," she said coldly, her tone a bit disgusted. I was stunned, didn't know what to say. I never thought that one day I would see that look from Lu Nuyen. I tried to get closer to her, but found that the distance between us was getting farther and farther. She no longer relies on me, nor does she trust me anymore. She even started to doubt my heart. She always doubted my purpose, whether I wanted to take advantage of her, whether I wanted to throw her away again. I was silent, didn't say anything. I can only use actions to prove my heart. I started learning her language, learning her way of thinking, learning her business strategies, trying to integrate into her world, becoming someone she could rely on. I joined her in all kinds of cases, handled all kinds of work with her, and faced all kinds of challenges with her. I silently supported her, cheered her on, kept her company, and used my actions to prove my love and loyalty. But Lu Nuyen's heart is still tightly closed. She was like a wounded hedgehog, curled up, refusing anyone's approach. I started to feel hopeless. Am I never able to open her heart? However, I still didn't give up. I still persevere, still by her side, still using my heart to warm her icy heart. I understand the suffering she went through in the past. I know the fear and insecurity in her heart. I know clearly that to open her heart, I must make her trust my heart, so that she can feel my love. I began to pay more attention to her inner world, learn about her joy, sadness, anger and joy, learn about her thoughts and feelings. I started to use more thoughts to accompany her, talk to her more, listen to her heart more. I started trying to put myself in her position to look at the problem, understand her thoughts, and respect her decisions. I started to feel like a real friend, accompanying her, supporting her, cheering her on, helping her overcome her fears and insecurities. Gradually, I discovered that Lu Nuyen is not a cold and heartless person. Deep inside she still hides the gentleness and kindness of the past. It's just that she hid those things away. She will still occasionally show childlike innocence, will still occasionally show weakness and insecurity. She's just using a cold shell to protect her weak heart. I started trying to touch her inner world, warming her icy heart. I began to use my heart to melt the ice in her heart, awakening the gentleness in her. I know this will be a very long journey, but I believe that as long as I persevere, one day I will definitely open her heart, letting her feel love and warmth once again. My journey still continues. The story of me and Lu Nuyen is still continuing. I will use my heart to love her, protect her, and keep her company. I will use my actions to change her, heal her, so that she can be revived. I believe we will eventually walk hand in hand to a brighter future. The morning sunlight peeked through the gap in the curtain, illuminating Lu Nuyen's delicate face, rippling her long, curled eyelashes. She stirred slightly, rubbed her eyes, then out of habit wrapped her arms around the person next to her. Instead of the familiar warm embrace, Lu Nuyen only touched a cold void. She suddenly woke up and jumped up. Heart tightened. 5 years have passed since Qian Tan Nan returned, and she still can't get used to waking up without seeing him next to her. Saint Lu Nuyen's slightly troubled voice rang out in the large bedroom. "Who are you?" Voice. A familiar rumble rang out from the kitchen. Lu Nuyen breathed a sigh of relief, her heart was filled with sweetness again. She got out of bed, her bare feet stepped on the soft fur carpet, and walked towards the kitchen. Qian Tan Nan is standing next to the bar, wearing a simple white shirt, his hands quickly mixing something. The sunlight shines on his jet black hair, outlining the angular lines of his handsome face. Lu Nuyen walked in. He smiled, his eyes were as gentle as water. "Are you awake?" "It's almost done, please wait a little longer." Lu Nuyen did not answer, just quietly approached, wrapping her arms around him from behind. She leaned her head against his back, feeling the warmth from his body, like a kitten rubbing against its owner. Qian Tan Nan put a cup of warm milk in her hand, bowed his head and kissed her hair, gently asking, "What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare?" Lu Nuyen shook her head. She took a sip of warm milk, her voice was soft. "No, I just woke up and didn't see you, I was a little scared." She tightened her arms as if to confirm his presence. Qian Tan Nan clearly understood the insecurities in her heart. He turned around, gently lifted her chin, his eyes full of love. "Mock, I promise to always be by your side." Lu Nuyen looked deeply into his eyes, there was only her own silhouette. Finally, she smiled brightly, her smile was like the morning light, dispelling the darkness, making the whole room light up. "Yes, I know." Breakfast takes place in a warm, sweet atmosphere. Although Lu Nuyen is already the queen of a powerful empire, in front of Qian Tan Nan, she is still just a little girl, who likes to be spoiled and pampered by him. After breakfast, Qian Tan Nan prepared to go to work. He is the head of a leading technology corporation in the world, and his daily schedule is full. But no matter how busy he is, he never forgets to spend time with Lu Nuyen. He left early today. "Let's go see a movie together." "What movie do you want to see?" Qian Tan Nan gently asked while tying his tie. "I want to watch a horror movie." Lu Nuyen winked mischievously. "Horror movie?" Qian Tan Nan frowned. "Aren't you afraid of ghosts?" "With me here, what are you afraid of?" Lu Nuyen smiled sweetly, her eyes sparkling at him. "Or are you afraid?" Qian Tan Nan laughed and gently pinched her nose. "Okay, this afternoon I'll take you to see a horror movie, remember that. You can't go back on your word." Lu Nuyen held out her pinky finger. Qian Tan Nan laughed, his eyes hooked his pinky finger in hers. Smile full of happiness. "I promise." That afternoon, Qian Tan Nan and Lu Nuyen went to see a movie as promised. The two of them chose a highly rated horror movie. The movie theater was deserted, with only a few people. Throughout the entire movie, Lu Nuyen maintained a calm expression, occasionally commenting on the actor's techniques and acting. On the contrary, Qian Tan Nan was not very comfortable. He originally didn't like watching horror movies, plus seeing Lu Nuyen still calm as if nothing happened, made him even more nervous. At the climax scene, the ghost suddenly appeared on the screen. Qian Tan Nan was startled and quickly woke up, holding Lu Nuyen's hand tightly. Lu Nuyen turned to look at him, smiled slightly, her eyes mischievous. "Are you scared?" "No, no." Qian Tan Nan was confused, withdrew his hand, trying to stay calm. "It's okay, I'm here." Lu Nuyen grabbed his hand and placed it on her palm. Don't be afraid, I will protect you. Her voice was soft, but carried determination. Qian Tan Nam looked at her, an indescribable emotion rising in his heart. He knows clearly that Lu Nuyen always protects him in her own way. She was once a weak girl, her love brought stubbornness and possessiveness. But he believes that under his guidance, she will gradually change, learn to love in a healthier and more mature way. Qian Tan Nan smiled and held her hand tightly. Let's get through this together. The lights in the movie theater were still dim, but the space around the two of them was filled with the warm light of love. They know clearly that on the road ahead there will be many thorns and challenges. But as long as they have each other, they will overcome everything, because they are the love of each other's life, the strongest support for each other.